Awesome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Tried to get the Sound Native plant guy I was chatting with. He's a good buddy of mine. I was like, man, I wish you weren't busy planting like 1,200 plants a day. Come join us, because this is right up his alley. And he'd have some good info for us as well, but he'd also learn.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if he wants to, yeah, if he wants to be on the list here, just shoot me his email and I'll get him onto the list so that he can participate.
He is the boss, so sometimes he can send the crew out and to go do stuff and hang out. But for the most part, he's just like, you know, mud up to the elbows right next to him.
Yeah, who is that?
His name's Apollo Stone.
Oh, no, I don't know him.
Awesome.
This is Mickey. Didn't Apollo used to be on a WCC crew?
Yes, he sure did. He did WCC.
Oh man.
04 to
Yeah,
06.
tell him howdy from me. He was on a crew that worked with me at the city of Olympia like eons ago.
Oh, is it?
I'm
is
so
Mickey?
excited
Is
to hear
Mickey?
his name.
Me too. I was there with Apollo too, Ben Amadon.
Oh yeah, you were.
And Troy was there too. It's funny, I was just chatting about you with some folks and thinking they would know you from the trees of Olympia, and they didn't. I'm like, where is she? Where's Mickey gone?
Yeah, I've been with the state now since 2008, and with the Aquatic Invasive Species Program, gosh, since 2016 now.
No kidding. Cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. So this is very cool. This is sort of like old home week.
Yeah, right. So I got with Sound Native Plants for a year, about 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago. And then this position opened up. I was working with the Chehalis tribe through Sound Native Plants, and their restoration coordinator position opened up, and I slid right in. Got to use my bachelor's degree finally.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm pleased to hear that. Congratulations, and please, please give Apollo my howdies. This is
I will. I just talked to him this morning. I'll chat with him. I'm chatting with him this afternoon.
Excellent.
Cool.
Ben, don't make it sound like you don't use your bachelor's degree every day for critical thinking. All right. You don't just
been
use it for
using
a job.
Since I got it. You're
everywhere.
right, Dave.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just getting paid for it.
So I don't know. Again, Kylie, I have a horrible habit of trying to take over stuff. So, and Paula, so I'm going to mute myself and not participate. But are we waiting for some more people? I know it's 10 after.
Yeah, let's get started. Paula. Do we want to do, since it's a small group, do we want to do a quick who's here?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll start since I'm talking. My name is Paula Cracknell. I work for Thurston County Public Works. Thurston County has been actively managing Elodia in the Chehalis River since the 1990s and has expanded to Parrot Feather, I think in 2016, 17. And I do mostly lakes management and then special projects on lakes.
Awesome. I don't know a lot about lakes. That's great.
Ben, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Ben Amadon. I'm the restoration coordinator for the Chehalis tribe. And I've got a lot of invasive species I'm responsible for taking care of here. We're not under county jurisdiction, so a big problem I've got on my plate for this next season is tansy. I've got 115 acres, almost all right next to each other, just filled with it. But so I do that, and I also do like riparian plantings, and that's kind of I do a lot more, or could do a lot more, but that's the extent of what I can do just by myself right now.
I'm Kylie. I'm the Grays Harbor County Noxious Weed Control Board Coordinator. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, good morning, Ryan Muniz. I'm the wildlife biologist for the Billy Frank Jr. Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge, so U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Two refuges, so here in Thurston County as well as Grays Harbor. Yeah, and I mainly deal with parrot feather, phragmites, Canada thistle, and then also bullfrogs and now green crabs. So, but that's another beast. So, thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Nick Jarvis from the Olympic National Forest. We don't deal too much with aquatic weeds, but we deal with a whole host of terrestrial species. Yeah, we have a big old long list of weeds that we treat since, yeah, we're kind of doing work all over the peninsula. So it's usually myself and a 2-person crew out there treating, with about 600,000 acres, we definitely have to prioritize what we do on the forest. But something we're trying to do as much as possible is to coordinate with all of our partners on the peninsula. So if any of you have any questions, comments for me or the forest, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'll just be pretty much listening in and offering any input I have during this call. So.
And Nick, you said you work for the Forest Service?
Correct.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And Dave Heimer, Washington State Fish and Wildlife. I'm actually, my nickname up there is Sir Walken. So, and then Russ and Les, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning. This is Russ Nunez. I work for Department of Fish and Wildlife. Primary weed is kind of Spartina. We seem to branch out into everything else. Yeah, that's about it.
We can't hear you, Les, if you're talking.
Who's on the phone at the 791-1818 number?
Yep. I'm on a
My brown-
phone. My name's Natalie, but I'm not sure it's that number.
Your number looks like 6660206.
Correct.
Okay. Kylie, do you mind renaming them so that we can put a name to the number?
You bet. And Natalie is with us here at the Grays Harbor Noxious Weed.
Okay.
Mickey, how about you
Can
go
you
ahead
hear-
and choose? Or sorry. The 791-1818.
Yeah, that's Todd Brownlee.
Oh, okay. Hey, Todd. With DNR. Okay, Mickey, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Todd and I are colleagues on the Department of Natural Resources Aquatic Invasive Species Program. And Todd is our guru for all things herbicide on the coast, especially. He works a lot with Spartina, and he's been working with Kylie in the Grays Harbor area. And I coordinate Puget Sound Corps crews and have also worked with Kylie and have worked with Paula and hope to work more broadly through the Chehalis River Basin with folks this year.
How about Charles?
Hi, I'm Charles Edmondson, and I'm the Lewis County Noxious Weed Coordinator. Relatively new here, started back in April, looking forward to my second season.
Greg. walks through mud.
Hi, I'm Greg Idy. I'm the chair of the Grace Harbor County Noxious Weed Board, and I'm also the Invasive Species Program Coordinator for the Quinault Indian Nation.
Mike?
Hello, I'm Mike Murphy. I'm a noxious weed specialist too here at Thurston County Noxious Weeds.
Okay, and then last, Kelsey, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm a noxious weed field technician that works with the Grace Harbor Noxious Weed Control Board.
And then Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Keeney, and I am a research scientist. I work as an independent consultant, but for 8 to 10 years or so, I've been working on a lot of invasive macrophytes, particularly along the Chehalis River, also out on the Olympic Peninsula.
And mud minnow.
And mud minnow.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys all for being here. And then this first section here that we're going to be talking about aquatics. And I'm going to hand it over to Paula. And Paula, do you want me to put that working document up, or do you have it? Or I can just let me know if you want me to share the screen of the document we put together.
The meeting, the breakout meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, that would actually be helpful. And if you could mute the Natalie and Todd on the phone, there's a lot of feedback coming through my computer.
Okay, got it.
Not to silence you, but it makes it hard to focus. So we met last month to just kind of discuss what we wanted to talk about in this meeting, and there's quite a few things on the aquatics list, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to jump off after the aquatics talk because I have some other meetings today. But I saw earlier that we had Charles on here from Chehalis County or Lewis County. So hi Charles, I'm glad you're here. And Charles and I had the opportunity to talk a couple weeks ago just about planning for treating Plummer Lake, because this area is a priority, because as you guys know, this is the point source for Brazilian Elodea in the Chehalis River that we have found. We haven't done extensive surveys upstream, but some surveys done by previous Thurston County staff have not found anything upstream from Plummer Lake. And when we talked, figuring out how to write a grant and if I can be of any support with writing that grant for that treatment, that would be great. We don't have any jurisdiction outside of Thurston County to do any submerged aquatic work. Our permit only covers shoreline for freshwater emergence, so we can treat parrot feather, no problem, but not Brazilian Elodea. So Charles, do you want to talk a little bit more about that? I know that you talked to Kyle because he gave me a call. And I'm just checking to see if you are still thinking about applying for the grant that opens up this October from Department of Ecology to do a lake treatment.
Yeah, I don't have too much to really talk about at this point, but my plan for the coming season is to document and then get the kind of long-term integrated aquatic management plan together for that grant so we can be ready to go at that point. Kyle was nice enough to put together an estimate of the cost and the kind of process that we would expect to need to go through when we do. It's probably going to be a 3-part process with 2 different kinds of chemical treatment followed up by divers and whatnot. And we've got some rough estimates that will have to be backed up by a bio-based survey, which I'm planning to ask him to do at some point this season. So we can get more concrete numbers out of that. So if we manage to get the management plan together and apply this coming October and to be approved, that would put us at July of 2023 to actually be able to go ahead.
Excellent. That's exciting. Great. Okay. Yeah, just let me know if you want any help talking numbers for writing and for diving too. I know that's kind of a big push, but it's definitely worth asking for. As far as a short history, as I said earlier, we've been going out and trying to manage the Brazilian Elodea in the Chehalis watershed since the 90s. It used to be a really big community effort with a lot of different partners from Fish and Wildlife, DNR, the tribe, and we got a lot done. So that slowed down in 2018. We weren't able to do any work out there. 2019 or in 2019, we weren't able to do any work. 2020 and 2021, we did a whole bunch of work. Last year, it was daunting, as you guys have heard me say, because all the areas that we cleaned up were just more vigorous than ever. So I'm excited to hear that there's some kind of wheels in motion, so to speak, to treat Plummer Lake, because I think that will really help. And I'm also curious to see what the river is going to look like after the big flooding event. So as far as who is taking the lead, there's going to be some changes in my position with Thurston County coming up here soon. That we have more lakes petitioning to form lakes management districts, and that's going to take me away from a lot of the noxious weeds work that I have. So this year, it's just kind of wait and see to see what happens. I'm planning on hiring contractors to go out there and do some work with a grant that we got from DNR and doing survey. And so what I would like to do is to just kind of maybe set up a series of mini meetings with Lewis County, the Chehalis tribe, Grays Harbor folks, just to see what you guys would find most helpful from me as a person who's been out in the field doing this work, knows the area. I'd be a good resource for mapping. Lauren also is a fabulous resource for that because she really knows that river well. And that way, if I am pulled away from this work more, then you guys have resources that you need to be able to maintain this project. And it's also worth mentioning too that most of the work that we do is outside of Thurston County, and we've had support from the Board of County Commissioners in the past for that, but seeing as I'm the only person who does aquatics for the county and will be pulled out to other things, I'm not sure how supportive the commissioners will be of me spending my time outside of Thurston County. So what's in Thurston County, we're going to figure out within our team how to maintain that. But outside of Thurston County, it'd be great if we could just stay in contact about what's going on. That way we can make sure that we keep doing this really important work, because even though we're maintaining, it's still super important to go out there and do it.
Paula, this is Mickey. Is there a central deposit for mapping data that you and your team have collected over the years that could be made accessible to everyone working in the CWMA?
Yeah, there is, mostly I collect all of my data on Google Maps because it's fast and easy when I'm out in the field. So I have good maps, well, good points of heavily infested areas on there. I haven't had a lot of time to sit down and work with ArcGIS lately, but the Google Maps is helpful for now. And those points can easily be taken and put into another map. I'll probably have some more time, hopefully in the coming months, to sit down and do some more GIS work. And yeah, we'll have those shape files, but for now I have online maps available and I can share them with people, no problem. And that's probably something to work towards with the 2022 season, to, probably gather more points, because I'm sure that there's some things that have moved around after the big flood that happened. And it would just kind of be a shame to miss those changes, and because we track pretty far off the shore, and a lot of the areas that are super infested are actually state fish and wildlife refuge areas. There's some parts within the tribal lands that are also heavily infested. So it'd be really awesome if this summer, I don't know your availability, Ben, but it would be great to survey with you through those areas. That way I can also show you what I'm talking about, these kind of back areas that got us logged through the mud that you might not think to check, especially for the Elodia, because it kind of really gets back there. The parrot feather is real easy to see. Well, and it, for me,
Yeah,
it's
for the
really
most part, I hear you. I can find those, even those tiny infestations of parrot feather. My eye's been trained, but the Brazilian Elodia, I only know of the past battle that the tribe has had with it. Like it was 12 years ago, we were up at the confluence of the Skookumchuck, and apparently it was really, really bad right there. And they took like tons and tons of it out, had it helicoptered out. And everything, but I'm gonna be like you said, you're kind of can't go out of Thurston County because it's just you and you got more on your plate. I'm kind of the same way. I gotta really just focus on what's on, like what I can actually do here on tribal land, some
Yep.
part of the river. But we're also really interested, like we're all here for, is trying to take care of the source and see how we can help do that. But I would love to for you to come join me, because what I do in the beginning of the season is go look for it all, see what the river, how it's changed, if it's taken it away from some spots and added it to others, and then having you along to help eye out that Brazilian Elodia, because you know, I've definitely seen it. I'm learning a little bit about that versus the native kind that's smaller.
Mhm.
But it'd be great to have you out there for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And I am certainly a resource for that. And I would like to offer that to everybody who's in different parts of the basin, because sometimes just going to the same areas. I know that for me with the parrot feather, Lauren was super instrumental in helping with that, because she knows where the parrot feather infestations are so well. And sometimes I just think it's helpful just to have that person who's like, oh yeah, you gotta go down this beaver trail for,
Oh yeah.
you know.
You know, I've seen your maps, Lauren, and those are still the hot spots. They're still correct.
Let me jump in really quick. So I hate to sound like a broken record, and I'm just going to follow up. So data management and synthesis it's a lot of what I try and do, and it's so important. I mean, everybody's just said this, but that information gets lost to time, and it takes a lot of work to do, but I think it's really, really useful. So Bill Wamsley kept a data set from 20 years ago for parrot feather, and then when we contrasted those, we found that the hotspots were actually very similar 20 years ago as they were today. So that kind of context is really helpful, and we might find the same thing with Brazilian Elodia. The other thing with parrot feather that we found is when we did that analysis, you know, they're proposing to put in a dam at the headwater up in PL, and that could reduce the flood regime, which for people that manage invasive plants could be of a concern, because those flood events may be helping to suppress some of these non-native plants. So I am concerned about the data, and I brought this up for parrot feather, and I'll bring it up again for Elodia. I do that type of work. I'm happy to try and lend hands to that effort, because I think it's really, really important to try and do this synthesis, that then the data is available, you know, and that information doesn't get lost to time, and you can use analysis or use it for future mapping or future planning or anything like that. I will let folks know, I've worked on a couple projects like this recently, either proposals to put in, like with knotweed on the Hoh River, the Chehalis River. And to do that kind of synthesis work, it's a big effort. Probably you're looking at between $15,000 and $20,000, and you know what I mean, like to really do a good job of that kind of synthesis work. So I'm available if people want to write proposals. If you see opportunities to do that, I'm happy to write proposals for that work. I'm happy to add that work on to existing grant opportunities. If there's an opportunity to sort of apply for something and we extend that work to do this synthesis and mapping, because Thurston County has decades of good data at this point, that I know there's gaps in it, Paula. I mean, I know it's imperfect, but you can do a lot even with that kind of gappy data. And if, I think that there's a real opportunity there to do that synthesis work before that information gets lost. So keep it in mind, It does need some money, it needs some time, but I think it's really important, and it can be done. It can be done. That's all I got. My soapbox.
Thank you, Lauren. Yeah.
Hey, Paula, this is Dave Heimer. I have a question for you too. And just looking at the schedule. So are we still on Plummer Lake, or have we kind of merged? Because I had some questions about Plummer Lake.
We've merged, but go ahead and ask them.
Well, getting back, if you look at that agenda, I mean, some of those things I heard what Charles said. Is there any thought about, like, again, the lake ownership? I mean, part of doing the control in the past, control was done on that lake. I think using an ecology grant are the landowners, has that stuff, Charles, has that stuff been brought up with the landowners? Like, hey, we're thinking about doing this, trying to get them on board really early. The other thing is, talking to them about a lake management district option. I don't know if they're interested in that. Paula, you're having experience with that. And that's a nice way to not let the ball drop. When the landowners around the lake are involved, then they're the ones, pushing or, getting stuff done. So that's a nice, and there's usually a mechanism. I know Fish and Wildlife ends up paying the majority of funding for those LMDs when we have a boat ramp at an access at a lake. So again, there's a funding mechanism there for kind of long-term work that's associated strictly with that site, instead of going out looking for grants all the time. And then I would be interested in some of those price points, those costs, because the other thing I'm thinking of is, maybe this would be a great project for ASRP, the Aquatic Species Restoration Planning Fund, where it's the location, it's the highest, it's the farthest location upstream for Brazilian Elodea, and it would be that top-down approach. It would be the very first place to do the control, a different funding source, and probably a quicker funding source to get started in some ways, potentially. So I'm just throwing that kind of stuff out there, kind of a vomit. And then if Charles, if you could just answer that question about the LMD and if you've been in contact with the landowners.
I have not been in contact with the landowners. I was imagining there'd be a similar process to what we did for Mineral Lake, where, kind of in the process of getting the DOE grant and eventually implementing it, we would have to go through a long process of kind of just talking to them, getting them on board, issuing various notifications so they don't feel surprised or abused in any way. I have not really considered the process of doing that before this season, but I guess there's not really a reason not to. So that is a good point to bring up. I'm going to be honest, in terms of like doing much more than hosting events that might get them on board, I don't have the bandwidth to push forward them forming some other kind of organization to take on that themselves. I mean, that's something we can look into in the future, but it's not a product I currently have the ability to take on.
Well, and also with RCWs for forming a lake management district or beach district, it has to come from the lake landowners themselves. And it would be an organization completely fostered by the community of Plummer Lake and not by Lewis County. So I don't know. I mean, we have lots of groups reach out to me all the time about forming a lakes management district. They're mostly concerned with weeds, but we have a lot of lakes here that have Fish and Wildlife boat launches. And you're right, the Fish and Wildlife pays a huge portion of their LMD fees. There is no boat launch on Plummer Lake, but even if they formed a friends group, like Friends of Plummer Lake or some kind of association, that would be great. But again, it has to come straight from the people who live on the lake. Might be something worth having an education person just kind of throw out there talking to landowners, but our role on that is we don't push that at all. We just answer questions when people bring them to us at Thurston County. But yes, an LMD is great for a lake because it is a long-term funding source. So plans can happen, and it also makes it easier to get grants too, because then there's some initiative that's being taken from the people who live there to maintain a nice, noxious weed-free environment.
I can look more into that and make sure that I'm bringing some kinds of materials that are just a baseline of education around it to any meetings that we might have with local landowners.
Sure. Okay, so it sounds like we have some kind of a resolution here. So we have Lewis County looking into writing a grant for Plummer Lake, setting up a meeting with me so that we can discuss money and I can provide support however you need for grant writing, planning, whatever. And also from the Chehalis tribe, I'm here surveying this summer to go look for Brazilian elodea. And if anybody else is interested in that, just let me know and we can pencil in a time. I'd like to hear
What
a little.
would be a great date for that, you think? Like beginning or end of what month? What do you want to shoot for?
We usually go out August, September because the water level's low. And that's a good time to do it.
Awesome.
I know it's a long way off, but it's nice and easy on the river around that time of year.
Is that the survey is best done by kayak?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Paula, can I jump in real quick with another question about, does anyone know the status of, I'm wondering about RCO funding for this type of work, either for treatment restoration of, for any of the treatment or restoration work along the Chehalis or Plummer Lake? Just, I mean, my first look at those grants suggest that it could be an opportunity, but maybe someone on this call has better familiarity with those.
You gotta stay tuned for the knotweed section. That's when we roll into the big money.
What's that?
No, I'm joking. Yeah. I did contact ASRP. I'm just gonna jump in real quick. I did contact ASRP. And I also contacted RCO, and I've got some links in the knotweed section that I'll pass along because the funding opportunities are just starting,
right?
Or very, within the next month or so, getting ready to kind of consolidate what projects they want to fund. So this is the perfect time to at least put something in front of them. And that's why I'm thinking like Plummer Lake. And let me jump in before I forget. Plummer Lake, there's a boat ramp there, but it's a car top boat launch. So again, I don't know if that qualifies for an ecology grant. And if I remember, it might have in the past, but I want to say they've changed that where you need to have an actual ramp that you put a trailer in because that's where the fees are generated from. The money for that aquatic ecologies fund is generated from actually boat trailers. And if you can't put a trailer in the water, then it's not applicable. I'm not trying to be bring on anybody's parade. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Over and out.
That's definitely something to look into. However, they have plants that are of particular interest, and Brazilian elodea is one of them. So Elizabeth Seebacher would be a great person for you to contact, Charles.
I already have. And yeah, I'll follow up with her about that. I wasn't aware of the distinction around the boat ramp, so I'll ask that question. I've been trying to find a way to drop the information that Kyle gave me into the chat or whatnot, so you guys can actually just see the estimates he provided, which will probably end up changing and probably increasing once they do the biobase survey, but I can't figure that out. So I'll probably just email it out to the group actually.
Okay, that sounds good.
I have an input about some RCO funding. It is an interest of mine to, I will be writing another grant proposal for the Washington Coast Restoration and Resiliency Initiative, and which is what we're currently on, and which partly, part of that is, I mean, it's called the Chehalis Basin Cooperative Weed Management. It's about funding these kinds of projects where there's multiple agencies working together to achieve control surveys and all those kind of things. So I'm definitely interested in adding that component into this next round. So Lauren, I would like to, it would have to be about, I think that it would be most appropriate for the surveying side of it and the data synthesis of it. I agree that that's something that we definitely need. Yeah, I would like to look at that further and see how we could fit that into my next grant proposal. Does that sound?
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy to work with you on that. So.
Okay.
This is Mickey. There's also a National Fish and Wildlife Foundation fund grant for planning purposes that would usually runs right around $25,000, which would be enough to cover this. And that might be worth looking into as well, specifically for data management purposes.
And Mickey, can you say that again, where that one was from?
National Fish and Wildlife Foundation.
Oh, okay.
Great.
There is also, I think US Fish and Wildlife does an annual, so Fish and Wildlife out of Lacey, that office does a restoration grant almost every year, I believe. And I believe it's focused on the Chehalis River, which I haven't seen the call for that, but I feel like it comes out around now, maybe. I can find out, I can try and find out more about that one.
And I wanted to put one more plug. So regarding Lauren about you collecting, collecting the weed location data and, keeping that into for posterity. That's a great idea. Interestingly, I went on that ASRP website again and looked at, they have a map of all the fish blockage locations in both RIAs, 22 and 23. Right? So you can look at the map, see where the fish, and they've ranked them according to which one's a priority, right? So again, it's a nice visual. And I think with the weed issues that we have, that falls kind of right in line with that, where it would be nice to have those weed locations and that kind of visual thing. Yeah. So that's again, my 2 cents.
Excellent, thank you.
Really fast, Paula, you were mentioning you collecting data points with just Google Maps. Without ArcGIS, are you able to just to like take those points off and share them easily with someone else to put them on Google Maps?
Yeah, I mean, I share maps all the time of locations.
Awesome, because I'm just trying to find a way to do that same kind of thing myself without having to pay for some sort of a service that I gotta. Like an ArcGIS or something like that. So I've been running Avenza, their free app, but without pitching in money into it, I'm having difficulty, sharing a file and bringing it back onto my phone to look at that same file, which I thought would be easy, but it's not. So I'm kind of looking for like a free way to do it.
Yeah, I've been using Google Maps forever, and I use GIS ArcMap too, but Google Maps is just nice because you can make this really great map while you're out in the field, and you can easily text it to anybody and be like, okay, this is what I found. And you can take those data points and put them into a nice, pretty ArcMap. We also have limited capabilities with ArcGIS with the county, which because we have lots of county sites that are managed by our geodata center, but outside of the county, we don't. So Google Maps has been great because I can cover Lewis and Grace Harbor County and still get the information out there.
Awesome. Awesome.
And I'll jump in too and jump onto what Paula said. So Data Basin publishes really nice, they'll it's free. You can publish a map to Data Basin and then share it with people and they can browse in the Data Basin app. It's ArcGIS something, but it's free. And if I could offer a recommendation, probably what I would suggest is that doing what Paula does, which is like, if you've got these sort of interim maps that are sort of work in progress, or they're not fully whatever finalized or something like that, you do them in Google Maps. And then eventually, if you're like, I've got this really solid data set that's not going to change, then you put it on Data Basin as more of a posterity thing. And so that it's free, you know, all of that would be free. And yeah, so Data Basin is a good one to check out.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
Sure.
It's nice to know of free things that are easy to share too. Okay, so it sounds like we have a little bit of momentum for Brazilian Elodea. I'd like to hear from Fish and Wildlife because as we discussed in the brainstorming session, there's the Hoxit unit, which is out near Porter. It's completely chock full of Brazilian Elodea and parrot feather. And I was doing a little research on that management area, and it looks like it's part of a big fish project that's going on right now. And so I know I've mentioned in the past trying to see like what we could do with Priscillicore on parrot feather. And I feel like that would be a really great spot for it. And I don't think that I have the capacity to take the lead for that, but for planning and just figuring out timing and all that, like I certainly can be a resource for that. But I just want to put that plug in there just because that area is separate from the river and it's quite deep and it's so full of parrot feather and Brazilian Elodea that you can't even kayak through the area. So I definitely want to put that on your radar since we have some state Fish and Wildlife folks on the call.
Paula, the tribe owns the property just south of there, just upstream of the Hoxit unit. I think the properties are touching, like we're that next strip. That's a huge riparian planting I'm doing down there. And so I'm just, whoever that you know would be in charge of looking into the Hoxit unit, I'd like to meet with them and we can kind of look at our spot and their spot and see if there's some sort of a partnership we could do just on that one unit, since we're actual neighbors right there.
Yeah.
That would be the, you know, we would be involved, myself and Les and Russ, and we'd probably get the wildlife area manager involved as well. So we can put that on our list of things to do this season. So
I think it'd be worth the field trip for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
I can tell. So Paula and I were there together, and I've been treating and surveying that site for 8 years or so, and I have never ever seen it. Like, it's basically the whole thing now is full of Elodea.
Yep.
It's crazy.
well, and with Elodea, I'm a little you know, for us to treat Elodea that's going to be problematic, because for treating that, you're going to need to be under the lakes for submerged plants, you know, for the
APAM.
parrot feather, you know, that could be a foliar application. And if you got any, well, anyways, foliar application, but yeah, Brazilian Elodea would be a submerged application.
Yeah, the parrot feathers along the shore. What's happened is that area has gotten more and more disconnected from the river. So it's almost, it's very unconnected. It's just connected now via this kind of small channel. And as that's disconnected more, I think the Elodea has now filled in. The whole area seems to be sort of filling in. Potentially that's being, sediment might be being more trapped by the Elodie, and it may be, it's hard to say, right? But basically the whole area is becoming more disconnected from the river, more filled in with Elodie. Whether that changes, I mean, you could do an in-water treatment that's not going to have a lot of flow connection with the main stem river to the extent that that matters. But it's, yeah, when Paula and I were there, it was shocking.
Yeah.
When were you guys there?
2 years ago, maybe?
Okay.
Is that-
I'm curious about post-flood, you know,
is that right,
if it did anything.
We went out there in 2020. In 2020, we super broed down on the river and went to a bunch of spots. And then this year, or 2021, last year, I went back out there.
It looks the same.
It looks the same, and the parrot feather is also super out of control. So
Well, right, as that whole area fills in, the parrot feather will become more dominant because it does better in shallower. So the Elodie fills in while it's deeper, and then the parrot feather will come in and become more dominant.
okay.
And you're saying that, Paula, that there's a Fish and Wildlife project going on there as well, or is this Ben's project?
Yeah, it looks like there's a fish passage project going on in that area.
And close enough to the pond to be, I mean, that it's going to be part of it. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know.
I'll find out.
That's
So,
just what I saw online.
so this is going to be one of those sub meetings for us to maybe all get together, the people who are interested. Okay. Okay. It's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a perfect spot to do any kind of experimental anything, just because of what Lauren said, how it's separate from the river. So you could have some pretty good results.
Okay. All right.
And on this list, we're going down into parrot feather and Brazilian Elodie into the NPDES issue. Yeah, Mazapir is pretty good. The Galleon, though, it's controlled for Brazilian Elodie and not parrot feathers. So that's, I'm sorry, I didn't notice that on this when it came out, but Galleon is a fairly new one with low tox profile, and it has good efficacy against Brazilian.
That's fine. I'll add that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Priscillicore has excellent efficacy on milfoils, and parrot feather is a milfoil, and you can do a foliar treatment. But Mike and I did a training for being Priscillicore applicators, and when I was grilling the guy about parrot feather, he was like, I'll have to think about that a little bit. So he thought a combination of submerged and foliar would be best for parrot feather. So my understanding is that Fish and Wildlife have the APAM permit for the Chehalis River. I don't know if that's state or US, but that was my conversation with ecology.
Oh, well, I'll just say we don't. I'm the one who holds the permit. I'm the one who does that. So we don't have the Chehalis listed.
Okay.
But we could add something, but we would just want to, again, get out ahead of the curve if we want to do something this year. So that's why it's important for me to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, that's exciting. I don't know if anyone from Fish and Wildlife would like to go out on the river in late summer, but if so, please let me know. It's Ben and I can probably go and check out that spot too, so I can show them what we're looking at, and we go out. And yes, it's all done in kayaks. There's no way to really do it any other way, just because there's so many gravel bars on the river. So if you bring a big boat, you're going to get stuck. And I don't know about you guys, I don't have the strength to lift a boat. So
we'll definitely be interested in tagging along to on that survey. And DNR, is this a little bit too upstream of your jurisdiction to come along for a survey or getting involved?
Kylie, this is Mickey. I'm not sure if Todd's able to unmute and jump on this. We would be very interested in going along and participating in any of the Brazilian Eladia and parrot feather control. We're a little limited as to what we can offer, and we just need to talk further and find out where our resources could best help out along the river stem. So yeah, we want to continue these conversations, and we definitely like to be interested in some of these investigations.
Great.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Sounds good. And that kind of plays into what's on the end of that list there, where it says, you know, do we need a official study to treat site with known products to be effective on parrot feather and Brazilian Eladia? I would really like to pitch the Hoxit unit for the reason of both the Chehalis tribe and Fish and Wildlife having access to the area and being able to garner resources to have people go out there. And I will help in any way that I can on that, because this project's super important to me.
So I'll throw in again my 2 cents. The a study, it takes, we do this all the time when we do we do a new weed control project. Is we got to go out there and reinvent it, right? The label might say, hey, it takes 2 quarts per acre to treat this plant, and then it's a new thing for us, so everybody's like, well, how much does it take to do it? So, hey, John, still, can you mute your stuff? I think you're talking. So it's a new thing. So I'm a little hesitant. If we know something works and it's labeled, then part of me says, let's just go do the work and do it and follow label recommendations. I think the only advantage that I can see is that if there's funding, let's say through ASRP, and they're concerned about amphibians, then that's the benefit I see, that should be rolled into it. So we can go into these wetlands into the future, 2, 3, 4, 10 years in the future, and ask for money to do the work and be confident that when we go and treat these pockets, these wetlands with the herbicide, that we're not going to be impacting the amphibians or what have you, because that's what they're gonna. There's going to be pushback if we can't show on some of the stuff that, yeah, you follow me. I don't have to explain it.
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, I think that's the beauty of Procelicor, to be honest with you. It has a very good toxicity profile. So I would love to see more of that being used. I mean, I know that imazapyr is also safe for amphibians. We've had some good studies that show that it's safe. I know that the person who did the study actually just threw a bunch of rocks in the pool with imazapyr, and that's how she got her results. But we aren't seeing a large scale dieback of this plant, and that's the thing that concerns me. And I have really good evidence that Procelicor works well on milfoils. We have Blue Lake out here in Thurston County has variable leaf milfoil, completely full of variable leaf milfoil. They've been doing things for 20 years trying to get rid of VLM in that area. And we went out there in 2020, did a treatment with Procelicor. Half of the lake is completely clear of variable leaf milfoil. And the other half of the lake, there's issues with super cold water and inflow, and it was not as effective because of those factors. We're going to treat again this year using a different method of application to try to kill it back. But I was so impressed. And you guys, I do noxious weeds work on aquatic plants, and you know how daunting this is. You go do all this work, you come back, water moves. It's never ending. So it's I I was very excited about the results out there. And I really just would love to see even just a small experimental plot on any of the areas that Lauren has mapped out. You know, Despair might be a great place to do it too, you know, because it's closed off, but her names for these areas are amazing. But just to try and see, because we don't know if this is going to be a good thing for parrot feather in the Chehalis River. And if it is, awesome. If not, then,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, again, the Hogshead site, I'm thinking more that it's got Brazilian Eladia in it. And
It has
and-
both.
What's
It has,
that? Yeah, it's got both, but it's,
Yeah.
I mean, the treat, I mean, if the treatment, if you're gonna try to go in there and control Brazilian Eladia, the Bacillicore isn't labeled for that.
no, but it is labeled for parrot feather.
For parrot feather, yeah.
Yep.
So I guess what, yeah, so if we're gonna go in and control for Brazilian Eladia, and that's one of the targets for the future that we're gonna want money to do work in these areas, not only for parrot feather, but for Brazilian Eladia, then we're gonna wanna make sure that the Brazilian Eladia herbicide we're using is covered and safe for amphibians. You follow me?
This is Todd Brownlee. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Celicore is not going to work on the Brazilian Eladia,
Nope.
just for your information. And then you talked about accessing with boats, and I have been on the Chehalis, and I've gone from Porter all the way to I-5 in an airboat in the summertime. So even with the gravel bars, you can get around in an airboat.
You can get around in an airboat, I'm sure. I don't have an airboat. We
I
just have.
do.
Great.
So does Dave.
Yeah, I was going to jump in real quick and say, Paula, I think I think it's possible to do both. We've done this with the Mazapir, and when we've tested out a Mazapir against other things, what we've done is a combined thing where we have some experimental plots, but we also do treatments of larger areas. So we don't necessarily wait to treat the rest before finding it. It's possible to sort of do both, to set up a subset of experimental plots and do these comparative treatments while also choosing to treat the larger plants in other areas. And Hoxit would be good. There's also Lincoln Creek is actually a pretty good place to do plots.
Yep.
There's also another place upstream, random name, that also is a good place to do plots. So there's a couple places where it's possible to do experimental plots pretty easily. And yeah, we've set up studies at that point, multiple studies designed, so it's pretty easy to just sort of be like, just use this study design and do that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be wonderful.
When it comes to like timing for spraying parrot feather and Brazilian Elodia, I remember for parrot feather, I was looking into that for last season, and they recommended hitting it once in spring and then once in the fall. And if you can't hit it those 2 times, just hit it in the fall. Is that something that you guys know about too? Is that kind of the timing for it?
Yeah, Thurston County, we did a treatment timing test, and actually, all things being equal, if you can do it in the spring, late spring, early summer, that's actually better if you only have one option. But effectively, there wasn't a huge difference between a early summer versus fall application, if that helps. That was for a Mazapir, well, and Triclopyr as well.
Yeah.
So Triclopyr, that's been tried on parrot feather as well, and it's like it works okay-ish.
You mean the timing or the Triclopyr?
Just the chemical itself. Like if I were like this last year, we treated it with a Mazapir. Maybe I switch this year. Right.
They're basically, Imazapyr is slightly more effective, but if you had a reason to use Triclopyr, it's not going to make or break the difference. So we've tested at this point, we've tested Imazapyr 2,4-D, glyphosate, and then Triclopyr against parrot feather. Those are sort of the top, those were the top contenders. And then with Thurston County, we did a triclopyr, imazapyr, because those were then the top contenders. So of those two, imazapyr was somewhat more effective, not statistically so. But so you could use either, but your imazapyr is probably going to get you a little more. You know.
Awesome, awesome.
And Dave, as far as the Elodia goes, I would highly recommend looking into Galleon and just reading about it, because it's fairly new. It has also a very great tox profile, and in field and trial results, it has really good efficacy. So Priscillachlor and Galleon are something we haven't tried, and that's the only reason why I'm mentioning those two chemicals. Why not try something new? And who's the person who offered the airboat? I'm gonna write down your name.
Was that Todd Brownlee?
Todd Brownlee. Thanks, Todd. Yeah, that'd be great, because we go from Plummer Lake all the way to Porter. So if you have the availability to set a few days aside for survey, that'd be amazing. Be a lot faster. Those long stretches on the Chehalis are super slow.
Oh,
I just want to show you guys a picture really quick of the Hoxsett unit and the parrot feather. It's not exactly the best picture, but it shows you this is what it looks like throughout most of that area. And also there's like several little pool areas. Let me see if I can zoom this a little bit so you can see it better. But that's all parrot feather right there on top. And underneath the parrot feather is all Brazilian Elodia. So this is what this whole, and there's several little pool basins off to the side channels everywhere. And this is what this whole area looks like.
oh no.
Yeah, it's bad. It's
Hi,
really
This is Todd again. I'm only on my phone, so I can't see the videos, but I don't have a lot of time to go out and survey. But if you're willing to treat, I do have a boat with a spray tank in it. Better use of my time if you contact me when you're ready to treat the plant.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, I'll send you an email. We'll see if we can figure something out, because that's great. And thank you so much for offering the airboat. In my wildest dreams, I have.
Okay, and then I have, do you know if the galleon is sit on the list for in-water treatment?
Well, I don't know, because I don't have the permit for the Chehalis River.
You know, Galleon is
you
on
know?
the, hey Todd, this is Heimer. Galleon is on, I believe it's Penoxylum, and it's on the noxious weed permit. But again, that's just for emergent plants. And then it's on the APAM
Right,
permit
because you
for
need to be on
lakes.
the in-water.
Yeah, for in water. So it's on both places, but you know, and then it takes 2 permits to do in water. Yeah, like, so, yeah. All right.
Are you going to look into that and see if it's on the in-water permit?
It
or
is.
accepted herbicides to use?
It's on the NPDS. I just haven't applied for coverage for the Chehalis. That's what I haven't done yet.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for me before I unmute or before I mute?
No, that's all I have. Thank you so much, Todd.
You bet.
Okay, so I feel like we've gone through pretty much everything on this list for aquatics. And what my take home is from this is working with Charles to figure out a plan for Plummer Lake so we can treat the site of infestation. And I will totally offer you any resources that I have, especially with lakes, because I am really really well versed on not just lake ecology, but also people who live on lakes. So I can help you out with that. And then for the parrot feather and Brazilian elodea, this year I'm going to be hiring contractors with a DNR grant that we got to maintain the main stem for elodea and probably treat parrot feather with imazapyr like we have been doing on the sites that we've been treating, and to take anybody out who wants to go to show you the sites of the Brazilian elodea. And I'm going to look into Basin to see if I can put my stuff in there and make it easy to share with y'all. Or I can just share the Google Maps that I have too. And for an official study site, we'll see what's to come with the Hoxit unit, but I really think that'd be a great place. It's quite, as you saw in the picture, it's quite bad out there. So is there anything else that I have left off from this?
Sounded good to me. And then I'll help with the coordination of if anybody needs help getting connected. I'm happy to help with that. Like moving forward.
That sounds great. I feel like in September might be a good time to go out on the river. That's usually when things are kind of slowing down on the terrestrial side of noxious weeds. So if that works for you guys, let me know. Even October could work too.
Yeah, we were taking care of parrot feather and knotweed. We were able to get enough days in October to get a pretty good hit on them. I'd definitely like to get them sprayed earlier than that because it was a battle trying to find an okay day to spray in October.
Yeah, the rains really hit heavy. We were out there pulling elodea out of the river in October, and it was just pouring down on us, but it didn't matter as much while you're in the water. Okay, that sounds good. And I'll try to, it'd be great if we could use Todd's airboat, but we'll see. If I'm hiring contractors, they're going to go out there in their own kayaks, but okay. Cool. Do you guys have any more questions for me?
Any final notes on aquatics? Go ahead.
Could you scroll up to the first section of this screen share? I was just trying to look over that and make sure I actually did answer your questions. So I realized there's a few things in there we didn't talk about a little bit earlier. It looks to me like you're thinking about treating this season with the questions about the MPDES and that kind of thing, questions about in-house versus contractor and whatnot. Or were you trying to do something beyond the kind of documentation I was talking about this year?
Well, it's too late for the grant this year. And so treatment can't happen until 2023, but certainly planning and getting ready for the treatment, writing the grant, I can help you look over the grant. As I said, it works well to just be super concise in the ecology grants. They don't really want a lot of full detail, just short history and stuff like that. And there's a lot of history in this lake. So.
Right. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. That's what I understood as well. But a few of those questions looks a little different to me. Okay, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, and this is Heimer again. And I might be inserting myself, but on this, but yeah, again, I don't know. Yeah, there's some other details on that, and I'll talk to you two separately about it, so we're on the same page. But I'm glad you guys are talking and making progress. I want to be a help, not a hindrance. And if the ecology grant doesn't work out, then let's just make sure we've got a parallel line of potential funding to do the work. And that was my thought of ASRP and having a parallel line. It might not be any quicker, but it may be, another potential funding source.
Something that I think would be super helpful, because I am hearing about all these other grants that Mickey, Lauren, you, Kylie have mentioned. Could we get a list going of these grants?
No.
Shush. You gotta share.
Yeah, we can put together a list and I can send it out with the meeting notes and once I do the follow-up.
Okay, that would be awesome. That would be really great because then, we can not only have like a great data deposit, but we can also have a funding source deposit too, which I think would be awesome.
Kylie, would you include the deadlines on those grants? And I'll send you the Fish and Wildlife one.
Thank you. Yes, we'll include deadlines.
Does anybody know if the Wickery grant could be used for the Brazilian Elodia and the parrot feather? I know Greg from Quinault, he's using it for the knotweed, I believe. I just don't know. I know someone mentioned earlier that some weeds, go with some grants and vice versa. Some just don't.
It could, because I have multiple weeds that I'm working with on that one.
Cool. Just another one to toss on the old list.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That would be so exciting to get a list like that going. Okay. Well, thanks you guys. It's really good to talk about this with a group of people because it's such a big project and we need to have all hands on deck to really be managing it in the most effective way. So thank you so much for your time and for listening and for offering ideas and for offering support. It feels great. It feels really good.
Yeah, for sure. Good teamwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks Paula for also taking the lead on that. So
yeah, no problem. Feel free to email me any questions at all because I'm quite invested in this project. And even if I do get pulled off for more lakes management stuff, I'm still here as a resource and want to be involved as much as I possibly can.
Thanks so much, Paula, for all of your work over these last several years. It's just been awesome work, and it's been really wonderful to work with you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We got a whole group of inspired people here. So yes, go team. Okay, well, I have to hop off here because I have another meeting coming up here shortly I have to prepare for. But thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Paula.
Bye.
All right, bye. So we're gonna move now into knotweed. Anybody that hopped on for the knotweed, thanks for your patience. There's a lot to cover here. So yeah, we're gonna start talking about what the 2022 season is gonna look like for knotweed work and who's doing what and what's going on. And I'm gonna hand this section over to Dave.
I'll be back in a couple minutes, y'all. Got to take a little break-a-roni.
Do people want to take a break here? A short break?
Sure, 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah, let's reconvene. I think we can get through this. So back at 10:23. I'm muting. We'll see you at 10:23. Okay. Oh, hey, I'm back. Are the people back?
Everyone left.
Everyone left.
Good to go. Go ahead and get started.
All righty, everybody.
All righty. So that was a good, I thought that was a good first session. We made some progress, got some ideas of what we want to do this coming season and in 2023. So that's all progress. So the first step in the knotweed section is I'm curious. I have those things of organization, name, water body name, kind of who's doing what where, if they're actually running a knotweed crew of some sort. And I'll give Washington State Fish and Wildlife as an example. We're going to have a crew of probably 4 people doing knotweed control. We're going to probably be working just on our primarily the lower SATSUP on a restoration site for the season, and we'll probably be starting in April, mid-April or early May to do the work. So I'm writing this down. Anybody else having a crew?
So I'll be hitting all the knotweed that we locate on the river with hired contractors. I'll be putting that out for bid. And we also have a few spots just around the reservation, not a lot, probably about a half a dozen or so spots. And I'll be also bidding that out. And so I map it all out, and then I give that map to the whoever wins the bid, and they hit it. And so my goal, which I believe I'll be able to accomplish, will be hitting all the knotweed that I can locate on the reservation and on the tribe's property part of the Chehalis River this season, this summer.
All right. And when do you hope to have them out there doing the work?
It's a good question. I'd like to have them starting in July if I can get my maps together by then and get the bids put out.
Okay.
Well, I was having some contractors hitting it in October and late September, and it was too patchy to do it. You know, we're like, okay, I think we can get this sprayed and it'll have 3 hours before it sprinkles, you know, that kind of stuff. I really want to get it earlier when I don't even have to worry about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Ben, which contractors are you using, just out of curiosity?
So previously I was using Kyle Steelhammer. I forgot his company's name, and Sound Native Plants. And so I'm branching out. Sound Native Plants when I had them work for us at the moment, they didn't have their aquatic upgrade or a boat, but the price was right and they were available. And so we just made it work out. I ran the ship, I brought the ship, they did the spraying. But this year I have a whole nother list. I believe I think I shared it with you, Kylie, and there's about a dozen or so folks who can do river work. So I'm opening up my bidding to other folks, not just those 2 folks.
Sound Native Plants, they are up for doing other knotweed contract work in the area.
Yes, as of right now, they're working on getting their aquatics upgrade. So if it was something that had to do with that, they just need somebody who had that on site. By me working that out with them, they were able to keep their guy who was licensed but not aquatic upgrade doing another project, and then I took a couple of their employees, and I was the guy who had the license. So we were able to work it out that way. But they do all sorts of spraying.
Cool, good to know.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Kylie?
Yeah, you bet. So starting lower SATSUP, again, retreating where we treated last year, starting at the bridge, working down, and Dave, we talked about coming out in June Is that still working with you, or do you want us to, the three of us, me and then Kelsey and Natalie, to be coming out earlier with you on that lower sats up?
Maybe earlier,
Okay,
but we can talk about it. This can be a sidebar.
okay.
And you have a total of, how many people will be working?
There's a total of, there's just three of us.
3 of us, and that includes you?
Yep.
Okay.
This is Mickey. Kylie, we had earmarked a Sound Corps crew for 2 weeks to work with you this coming summer as well. The most likely crew would be available either the first 2 weeks of June or the last 2 weeks of June.
Awesome. Great to hear. That's exciting. Because yeah, retreating that whole area that we treated last year with the WCC crew, it would be nice to have a team sweep through that as well. And so great. So you said June. So
Yeah,
first
yeah,
2 weeks or last
and
2
we
weeks.
can fine tune that later. But I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that we were planning on that this summer.
Okay. I was crossing my fingers, but that's great to hear confirmation on that. So great.
Kylie,
Yeah, we're
go
still
ahead.
trying to get all of that, the details worked out for crew deployments for the summer, but that was one that we felt strongly needed to go forward. So we pretty much have that in place.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot of work on both sides of the river down there. And Russ, like you said, it's probably going to be a mess down there with the flood waters. Hopefully it reduced the amount I need to do upriver, but there's going to be a lot to do downriver. And while you guys all know that, yes, it's nice to be working in the lower sats up, especially with all the different agencies that are trying to get this this area knotweed reduced. It's not going to do any good until I get upriver with the private landowners. So the update on that is that yes, we'll start right off the bat early in the lower sats up, and then I have both of the most upstream patches surveyed on the East Fork and on the West Fork. I have the West Fork lined up, but it's a long stretch. It starts way up high. But hopefully I do have those landowners lined up, and I would like to get that started and potentially floating and treating at the same time on that one because it's such a long stretch. And then I'm not sure, do I have anybody from the Conservation District on? Is Charlie or Anthony on? They might not be, but I'm working with the Conservation District up on the East Fork. Their early action reach is near the most upstream patch. So they started work up on that last year, as did we. And we will start working our way down that on the East Fork. It's just going to be time consuming because there's a lot of parcels, a lot of very small parcels. So so we're working on that one, and the West Fork, it will be a slow go, but at least we're getting started on the up rivers. And then as for my other knotweed work, I'll continue work over on the Wainuchi. And yes, go ahead.
How do I show, oh, here we go. How do I share my screen? Sorry.
Oh, I'll stop sharing. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. How come?
Dave, while you're working on that, Greg, I'll go ahead and read what you popped into the chat. So Greg ID has 2 crews of 4 people. 2 crews of 4 people treating and surveying in 2,000 acres of new harvest units on the Quinault. And surveying 2,000 acres of retreatment of old project areas. So approximately 600 acres of initial treatment areas on the lower Quinault River. And I also respond to any reports that no one else can handle anywhere in the watersheds that flow onto the reservation. So a lot of little side spots. And then Ryan, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Grays Harbor, spot treatment, in-house WCC crew, 5 members, date to be determined late summer, 1 to 2 days, refuge funded. Not sure if anybody's treating in the right of way on Highway 109 west of Hoquiam. I know someone treated in the past. Right away of Highway 109 west of Hoquiam. I can work with the DOT on that one. The DOT has a planning meeting with me each spring, and I basically say which patches of knotweed I am requesting them to treat around the highways. So I can request that they go out and treat that one.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Kylie, can you see my screen now?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, so this is that, and you can see the map of the lower sats up. You guys see
Yes.
that?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So this is just an example, and I guess well, have we got everybody sharing who's doing knotweed control this year? Who's running a crew in the Chehalis somewhere? Or tribs? If you want to share it verbally, that's fine. Or if you want to just put that into the chat, that's fine. And I'll jot it down. So if I don't hear anybody, I'll move on to the next little item here. So this is an example. The map up there is an example of Kylie's work south of the highway there down. You can't see the Chehalis, but it's just a short distance farther south. And the yellow dots are your points that you collected with I-form, Kylie?
Yes.
Okay. And then the red triangles below that, that's their SATSA project area. And that's where we treated those points I just put in by hand, but they're approximately the locations that we did the work for knotweed in 2020, 2021. And I think we treated about 9 acres over those 2 years, and then an extra 2 acres of retreatment. So a total of 11 acres got treated over the last 2 years, and we'll be out there. We're going to get a grant extension, hopefully. So we'll be out there, hopefully another 1.5 seasons doing that work. So that's that site. And John, still, we can kind of roll into a little bit on the data collection. So I know we collect data primarily with the Garmin, and then we have a collector app that we had our agency build for us, but we really don't use it that much for knotweed, not reliably. But I know, Kylie, you've done a lot of data collection, and let me switch screens. There's that shot of other areas where you're working, and if I put my cursor, that last shot was right here, if I can see my cursor. And so this is the larger county. John, still, do you want to talk about the WSDA app that they use to collect this?
Sure. It's basically the I-form collector / field maps now is what it's called. The same thing that I know WDFW is using for Spartina. It's the exact same thing. For example, but for fish and wildlife, if you guys are not accessing the knotweed map, whether it's in I-form or field maps, then we need to get you linked up with that. So there's no difference in what you're already using for Spartina for what we're using for knotweed. And if you're already accessing I-form and field maps for one project, we could easily get you set up to make sure you're viewing and having access to both the knotweed forms in I-form and field maps.
Okay. And does anybody else have any, interest? I know they were talking about mapping, Ben, you were talking about your ability to map and share data and look at data.
Yeah, it's still something I really want to just put in concrete the way that I'm gonna move forward. I don't really have something solid right now. Like when you're taking points with your Garmin, is it without the other app you mentioned your company got for you guys, are you able to just upload those data points right onto a Google map?
Russell?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yes, I can do that. I could put that data in kind of anywhere. I usually just download and put in like an ARC map.
Right on. Right on. We just don't have well, I personally just don't have the paid access to the ARC map. So until I find something that if we want to go that route for paying for something, we will. But until then, I'm just trying to find something free and easy. You think switching from Garmin onto a Google map is something that anybody could do?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm definitely not a computer guy, but hey, if I can do it, anyone can.
That's what I like to hear. Right on.
But there's a few steps, isn't there, Russell? From collecting it on Garmin, then you got to download it. And,
Oh, yes, correct.
yeah.
Right on, right on.
And
This is
massage.
Todd Brownlee.
Yeah. Hey, Todd.
If we're going to be collecting data, it would be best, I think, if we used field maps, because then all the data gets channeled to the baseline layer and everyone can have it. Be easier, I think, than going between Google Docs and Garmin's if we just got people hooked into using field maps. Does the group agree? It's easy to use, and then everyone can have access to the data.
And you're talking like Spartina to do the same thing for the knotweed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I like
Yeah.
that idea. I think the difficulty is the associated cost. It is that, for us, we've already got Spartina. It won't be a big stretch. And I don't know how, what WSDA's budget is for, because they have to buy the license to let the people use it. Isn't that correct, John?
Yes, that's correct. And then obviously the bigger obstacle with knotweed compared to Spartina is just the sheer number of cooperators and everybody involved and the different abilities, capacities, or resources that every agency has. So at the moment, I would say 50% or so of the programs we're funding are already using the iForm and field maps over various projects, but also including knotweed. And then we have some smaller agencies that simply still use Garmin or whatever device they use, and then they send it to me once a year. And we're kind of in the process of making sure we're getting everything, at least a yearly snapshot of knotweed in the same place for people to view. So I do agree with Todd that it would be great if everybody was involved with field maps. Logistically, it's kind of a headache to get everybody on board with it. We are wide open if people are coming in our direction and wanting help with it, as far as getting on board, maybe getting a license and stuff like that. But we're not going to require it from our end as of now to have every cooperator doing that.
Okay. And I'll just tell you, Ben, I mean, the iForm is really easy to use. I mean, it's all our Spartina crews use it, so it's pretty intuitive. So that's the nice thing about it.
Right on, right on. Yeah, we've got an Avenza that we're looking at maybe getting annually. We're looking at getting the, if not that, the ArcGIS map thing going. And if not that, you say we can throw iForm in there and we can compare that price wise and ease of access to it. I'm sure that's a costing thing,
Well, yeah.
iForm.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, there's some there's some caveat. At WSDA would be the people to talk to about that.
Right on, right on.
Yeah, they're the experts. Any other thoughts about data collection?
Yeah, I like John Still's idea of doing an annual, that he's kind of compiling annual data from folks. I like to participate in that too, send my data his way. I think that's a good start on trying to make data not disappear
Right.
in the future.
Well, that would be the other thing too, like Lauren had said, way to capture that, especially the more recent data that people are collecting now. Is there a way, John, for us to view data that's been already collected? Or is that a little problematic? I mean, do you have like a public facing site that we can look at knotweed data?
Here, just a sec. I'm going to have Chad talk a little bit about the data collections here. Just a sec.
Okay, all right.
Hey, everybody. You're on a big Bluetooth speaker here in the shop, so you can even yell at Mac across the way if you speak loudly. As far as data, I actually really liked what I just heard, and I didn't see who that was, but a wonderful step in the right direction would be if we could start getting data in and trying to at least assemble an annual map right now. The idea of using field maps, which used to be collector, to do data collection, it's still really glitchy when you don't have a perfect cell signal. And so you're likely to lose a lot of your data. That is why we're all stuck collecting point data in iForm, is it is not glitchy when you lose your cell signal and will upload later. The problem is if you've got iForm from us and you do not have field maps or ArcGIS mobile from us, you can't view your own information. You can only collect it and we get to see it. So you actually, I can't imagine a system where you won't need both for another probably 2 years. The other side would be what Dave was saying a minute ago. Cost is pretty huge. Spartina, which is, man, that maybe a third to a quarter as large as knotweed, is costing somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 a year. So this is kind of an ask for John statewide to instantly go past the $100,000 a year mark. And this doesn't happen without constant management. Spartina is down right now. During this call, I've been going back and forth with screenshots with our GIS people trying to get Spartina up and going again. It crashed yesterday. So this stuff's not perfect. And it would take us a while to get everybody on board with it. I think a really neat step would be for us to try and get some sort of a web map up and going where whatever format, WDFW, Dave, I'm already paying for all of your people to have iForm and field maps. You could just start tomorrow taking all of your data that way. We would have it instantly. Anybody else with the Garmin, download it in Excel format, send that data to John, we can load it up. It'd be really interesting at the end of this year to try and at least assemble all the data into one place where everybody could look at it. And like John was saying, we can slowly work with people to move them in this direction. But as far as a wholesale move for knotweed, we don't have the funds, and truthfully, we don't have the staff. We right now are trying to recruit for a new GIS tech at Ag because we can't keep up with everything we're already supporting. And we're very close to the break point where everything we've got out there is going to go down. So it's always nice to hear from people how well everything works and how slick it is. But there's a lot going on in the background, and that's going to be another FTE moving forward, just to support what we've already got up there. Knotweed might add another half an FTE, another recruitment for somebody. So we can't offer a fast fix. Anyway, those are some of my thoughts. Everybody?
Okay, so I heard you're going to get everybody on board this year in 2022 and collect the data for us.
Dave,
Thank you, Chad.
absolutely.
All right.
That's absolutely what you heard.
All right, perfect. Perfect. But no, I appreciate you getting on and giving that rundown. So, I mean, the whole Spartina thing has been an evolution. So, but it'd be nice to be able to port it over to something like knotweed. It makes sense, but I understand that it's not easy and it costs money. So, okay.
Real fast, Dave. So when I was asking our GIS guy, I threw it in the chat. I had him looking for some alternatives for me, and he turned me on to this website called UMap. What I did is I put the link, the hyperlink in the chat. If anybody wants to check it out, play around with it. I don't know anything about it. He just turned me on to it and said it's a functional thing. So it could be another tool in the toolbox. I wish I was bringing it to your attention with more knowledge behind it, but I just don't know much about it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just, I'll put in a plug for WSDA and the I-form. I mean, they really have. I mean, it's taken a while for that to they've done a really good job of figuring that out, getting it out to people, getting people using it. They manage it. You don't have to worry about extra costs. That's picked up by WSDA. So basically, once you get it, you do your updates and you're able to collect data. There's not a lot of monkeying around with it. And I find that some of these other programs that in the early days people tried to use to kind of just get by ended up, they spent a lot of time monkeying around with it, where a lot of people don't have that time to spend. So, or costs, or, if a company folds, where's your data? Or if they change the policy, then who owns your data? So there's other issues to consider on this for the long term. So, okay, I'm gonna move on, but I appreciate you adding that UMap link. I don't see it because I got my other screen up.
Dave, I wanted to add to that. Here, our program had an issue with the funding to purchase the ArcGIS account, but there are conservation grants through ArcGIS, and so we get our ArcGIS license for $100 a year. And
Okay.
I've been doing that for the last 3 years. So hopefully it just keeps going. But I just wanted to say that there are some conservation grants through ArcGIS.
That's good to know. Okay. All right. So look at my clock. We got 7 minutes. Okay, so I wanted to share this thing with you. We're on to flooding. So the question was, how do we anticipate things changing in 2022 with the major flooding we had on some of these rivers? And I just wanted to show you, it's just food for thought, but this is that SATSUP site. Again, I'll put my cursor. So you're looking right here. This is our project site, and this is the current river channel. So if we move forward, so this is a clip off of Google Earth. And so in 2005, you see the channel coming through here. All right, 2006, cleaned up a little bit. 2009, you see some vegetation starting to grow. 2011, again, more vegetation growing. 16, more. So 2021, we have a forest here. All the knotweed now is all through here, all through. Russell and I went into the forest down here and walked back through the forest last spring, and it was just bare ground, but knotweed cane all through here. And then that season, it grew up all through the understory. So just wall to wall knotweed, although you can't see it because it's overtopped by trees. and it's, again, I'm sure you know that's difficult to control because you have to get in there and you really can only get in there with backpacks and spraying. So I'm just thinking, I'm just bringing this up as an example because it really surprised me that in the course of, less than 15 years it had changed, and now we'd had really taken over. And I know that there was a lot of flooding this year, and I'm wondering, as these channels are created and then they go dry, that's just a bed for potential knotweed in the future. So any thoughts on that? Crickets.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I wish we could tell it not to show up.
It's gonna be a mess. How about that?
Sounds pretty typical to me.
Mhm. Yeah, and when we were working in this area above, I was trying to focus on getting the higher infestations of the knotweed off the gravel bars so that it would potentially reduce it, but there's so much still above it that every time we have high waters for the next several years, it's going to keep coming in. But as long as we just stay on top of it and get it down to a manageable level, and stay on top of where the new infestations happen until I get everything upriver. That's all I got.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. Again, I don't know if people, how to if this even matters for the prioritization, right? If after the floods this year, if you have a barrier that's been washed out and it no longer, it's not part of the main channel, that the thought is it's gonna fill in with knotweed. It's gonna be the understory of a forest in 10 years. I mean, maybe 2 years after is the best time to go in there before you get trees really establishing, or I don't know. I just thought this was interesting.
Hey, Dave, side note, in your 2021 picture, are those like large woody debris installations or something that I see? They look like little zits or something in your
Yeah.
picture there.
Yeah, down at the end here.
Yeah.
Right there. Russell, do you know what they are? I don't think I made it down there. This was later in the project. So this was at the end of 2021. So I don't think I made it there.
Yeah, I think that is those structures that they have been building.
To in the channel to interrupt and catch trees and stuff, woody debris.
Yep.
Yeah, because they had built some and put them in the channel here. I don't think you can see them as well.
That's right. If you look in the actual real map to the right of it, you can't see it in your map, but to the right of it, it looks like every 50 yards or 40 yards, there's a huge, large woody debris installation. Looks like, and then even where they maybe used to be riprap or something, even further down to the southeast, the whole edge is just lined with large woody debris. Anyway, we're about to be doing projects like that as well. So I just kind of seeing if you knew anything about it. Sorry, side note.
No, it's all good. And I put it in there, like I said, because I thought it was interesting. And since we had the big floods, it might be an issue in the future. It's just something to think on. Okay. Moving on, we got 2 minutes. Mazapir methods, that's the default. Diquat. Again, we did that project. I think we'll probably try to use Diquat this year. We can use it. It is not on the NPDS yet, but we can use it in non-aquatic situations, and there's plenty of those for us to use it in. So we might try some of that on a larger scale this year. And then experience using aminopyrrolid. I talked to Dana Kogan, who she used to be Kitsap weed board, and she uses Milestone. I don't know if anybody else does. And she tried to use it twice a year and at low rates. And again, she said after 2 or 3 years, in the second and third year, she got better control than at first. We've used it once on knotweed, and I didn't like the control, but our rates were really low. So it just twisted it up. It really didn't seem like it killed it very well, but I think I was way under rate. So anybody else's experience using different product besides imazapyr, or well, other than imazapyr and glyphosate? Anybody?
I know, that's what we use too.
No, but Dave, that's good to know about the aminopyrrolid, because it is available for landowners. And if private landowners can do the maintenance off river that I've cleared, that would be really helpful. And so just finding a product that at least will help with the maintenance in the long term.
Yeah, because if you have an area, let's say that's along the river, and you treat it with a non-selective like imazapyr, you might get good control after a year or two, but then you're going to want grass growing back there. Let's say if it's a residential spot, you're going to want to treat something that's selective, so you're not killing the whole plot again. So it's just another potential tool in the toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped sharing, Kylie. So, and then funding. Oh, you know what? I wish. I'm going to share one more thing real quick. Live. If I can figure this out, share screen. And all right. Okay, so I did add some snippets to that that agenda. So I have some amounts from the label for imazapyr, for diquat. And then funding wise, again, I talked to RCO, and what they said, what I told them was, hey, we've got all these people who are doing weed management across both RIAs, 22 and 23. And I said, although some of our projects, may not need a grant unto itself, there's a lot of times where we could connect with someone who's already got a grant. Let's say they're doing a restaurant, SATSUP, it's a perfect example. So it's a major restoration project. They tied us in. We got a significant amount of funding to do the knotweed control, a great idea. And then because of that, we roped Kylie into using some of her staff and grant money to do control work upriver. So it's kind of an additive thing. So that was my thought, is that if we can tie people who are already interested in projects to people who do weed control, that might be a good connection. And their response, RCO, was really, we need to connect our people to people in the lead entity. So we know what projects are happening. We build a relationship so they know, oh, yeah, I'm not going to forget about weed control. So that's what I would suggest, is that we become involved in the lead entities. Now, I don't know how many people are already involved in the lead entity for Chehalis.
I know that, like, we are in general. Kristen is our go-to for the lead entity.
Kristen Harma.
Yeah.
Okay. How about any weed people? Like, I'm thinking Charles.
Were you asking if I was already involved in the lead entity?
Yeah. Do you ever go to any meetings or listen into stuff?
No, I was just made aware of its existence in those emails earlier, I guess at the end of last week, but I've been pretty busy.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry you got kind of blindsided. I kind of just included your name and they included you, but that's a good thing, so you know about it.
Yeah, they look like promising resources. I just, she invited me to a whole bunch of meetings, like actually yesterday, but I've just been on other projects. I can't switch that quickly, but in the long term, yeah, I definitely want to get involved.
Well, and again, now does someone, now speak up if someone knows this, because I know lead entities, I just don't know the Chehalis Basins one very well. Is anybody involved in the lead entity besides Ben, who just mentioned it?
I am. I
Uh,
haven't
Kylie?
been as active in my attendance to the meetings, but I'm definitely yes.
Okay,
And
so
I work with Kristen on I'm on the board of the stream team with her, so I kind of get filled in of activities, and the conservation district, who I work really closely with, the Grace Harbor Conservation District, is really involved in the lead entity and the ASRP.
well, as a reality check, I mean, should more people be involved, or should you be, can you be like the conduit to kind of keep the weed end of stuff involved?
Yes, yes. I need to be more involved, and I am, in contact with a lot of the people that are implementing the projects, and I kind of am in contact with them on the side. But there's definitely a concerted effort to involve more weed management into all the projects, and we definitely, as noxious weed coordinators, we definitely need to have a seat at the table when it comes to implementing all these projects that are rolling out.
Okay.
So
And
I will.
Yeah, well, and again, just like Charles said, I mean, sometimes it's too much for one person's plate, and you're the Grace Harbor County Coordinator, and your responsibility is really Grace Harbor, not for everybody's weed control. But again, it would be nice to have someone who had their pulse on that, so they can plug weed control wherever it might, fit for the upper Chehalis or lower Chehalis, wherever it might fit. So that's what I'm really thinking. The other thing was the aquatic species restoration plan. That's that ASRP again. Our agency seems to be running the restoration part of that. And again, I was told sounds like there's three, they call them RITs, resource something, but they're teams. And so I think it's for the upper, mid and lower Chehalis Basin. But again, they asked if we would like to have people involved in that. So is anybody involved in that ASRP as well? Sort of like the same with that lead entity. Is anybody sitting on any of those RIT groups?
Hey, Dave, this is Julie Tyson, and I am part of the, I'm not part of the RIT, I'm a part of the RIT sponsor team. So it's regional implementation team for DFW.
Yeah.
So, but those are being led by the conservation district. So it's Anthony, Kiana for Thurston, and Bob for Lewis County.
That's right. I did get an email that had those names on it. Yep.
Yeah, so that would be like the core folks to plant that kind of seed, I think, with, because they're running those meetings, and when all these different projects are coming up, if there's no conversation about the weed management aspects of them, that would be a good place to have those seeds being dropped.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, am I saying, was I incorrect? And I mean, sometimes you think, oh, we should involve ourselves in something, and sometimes there's a different thought from up above. I mean, do you think it's legitimate for us to be involved in something like that? That it would be a good fit?
Yes, and they want that. The ASRP has been keeping me abreast of all the planning and moving forward. Again, I work closely with Anthony, so I kind of get all my information just by working with Anthony. And I'm actually, he did just let me know that, he's sorry he's not at this meeting right now, but I will have a planning meeting with the conservation district coming up here, and kickstart getting more involved with these meetings and having a seat at the table to discuss it. And I know that the conservation district is hiring more crew this summer, and they've been for doing weed management. They stick to their project sites, but they're really great project partners, and have a pulse for all the projects in the area.
Julie, any thoughts about that?
No, I think Kylie's right, but I feel like that the coordinated approach by the counties, which it represent those three different areas of the basin, seems to be warranted. And, you know, it makes sense that it's conservation districts that might be able to help facilitate that coordination. At least that makes sense to me. It makes more sense than me trying to do it. You know,
Would it be a stretch to, like, you know, again, put someone, you know, like a local person? I don't want to volunteer Charles, but I mean, if Charles County is involved in the mid and upper, or, you know, Lewis County, would that make sense to have him involved in that so he would know what was happening?
Which body are you suggesting that I be a part of?
The ASRP. Well, I don't, again, just the appropriate RIT. When I was involved in a lead entity at one point, it was kind of a cliquey bunch after a while, you know, that they didn't want a lot of people at the table. You know, they wanted a certain amount of people at the table so they could get work done. And, you know, and so I'm just curious on, you know, there's a fine line between having too many representatives and not having enough. And I'm just kind of wondering, I don't want to invite ourselves or get invited to something that we're not being helpful to. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like when I thought Bill did used to attend from the noxious weed Lewis County. But I don't think it would hurt if Ben, Charles, and I were, you know, attended some of these meetings, or, you know, were more regular in attending the meetings to find out how we can get plugged into projects, or at least know which projects are going on, and hear about how weed control is involved.
And especially, and my thought now is that there, I think, if I'm right, Julie, that the planning process for these projects for the next, you know, bunch of funding is kind of occurring now. They're looking for projects, trying to suss that out. Is that correct?
there's a monthly application. So it's not like if you don't have it figured out now, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
But that being said, there's going to be a big push to spend the money that's available. By a lot of people are going to apply early on, I anticipate.
Okay.
So if we want to try to do something that's on a larger global scale, but I like the idea of it being attached on a project basis, but you know, a lot of the projects are small, right? And so as Kylie's been working across the SATSA on a more global scale, if they're doing little stuff down below, it's all going to get negated as soon as the stuff washes back in, right?
Yes, right.
So it's that against the wall kind of thing. So I think it's more of a global basin efforts, I think, is what really is needed to make headway.
It seems like the projects that ASRP has, and I'm on the surf board as well, the Salmon Recovery Fund board. And when it comes to specific projects, it's usually part of each individual project to take care of whatever invasive species are on site. And so that seems like that's already taken care of itself. It seems like the way to attack invasive species through ASRP or the surfboard is bringing it up as a project. And that's how we can get funding, and that's how we can get them to focus in on it. And I think ASRP, that they kind of choose their projects based off of priority. So having someone on there, you know, preaching about the noxious weeds would help create priority. Maybe I know they already have written in their ASRP book that they put together what priority is, and they're trying to follow that. And with the surfboard, like we got some projects going on, and each of them are basically a fish barrier removal. And as part of it, they take care of the invasive species that are around there. But you know, having just a project that we put forth for funding for noxious weeds would be our way to go for both those groups.
Yeah, I agree. And those priorities are usually by a basin. So like the Black River main stem is one of the priority basins. The Sats of Wainuchi, of course, have their pieces. So tied into that, but again, not negating acknowledging that what's upstream will affect that section also. So it's not like if it's the priority is just the main stem Sats up, we don't want to ignore that the East Fork and the West Fork are affecting it. So even though they're not the labeled priority, they're still a priority that they affect them that reach. That made sense.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, that was the last thing I was gonna bring up, and we can follow up as smaller groups and break up. I ran 15 minutes over because the last group ran 15 minutes over. So I will give up the chair to Kylie. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Does anybody else have any more input about their knotweed work around the basin?
I have one question for Fish and Wildlife.
Yep, go ahead.
You know when the Montesano boat launch is going to be open, and are any of the other boat launches closed right now?
I'm gonna let regional staff answer that question if they know, Lester or Russ. Lester, Russ. We will find out. We're going to find out and get back to you. Sound like plan?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, thank you all for the input. There's definitely a lot of knotweed work to be done this year. It sounds like the main focuses are going to continue to be the Satsep and the Wainuchi. And if anybody is doing like DNR, if you guys end up doing any of the knotweed work down in like near the confluence, the Wainuchi confluence, let me know. I have been doing some work in the lower reaches of the Wainuchi, but the bulk of my projects are definitely still way upriver. But yeah, there's a lot to do, and it sounds like we're gonna get started real early this year. So I'll be in touch with all you guys. And I guess there's one, Charles, you kind of mentioned that you might want to be starting some main stem Chehalis knotweed work. Is that still something that you're interested in?
I am still interested in getting the knotweed work going. I am still trying to figure out exactly where we want to focus. We had kind of been pushed a little bit by some people recommending to focus work in the Chehalis, but my board has kind of balked at that and wants to focus on the areas that we've invested money in the past before I came on, which I'm still trying to figure out if I want to push back against that and argue that it's diffusing our efforts too much. So we're still kind of in a back and forth on exactly where to focus the money and time.
Okay. Good to know. At least it's on the radar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you all. And we're gonna move into this next section here, which is gonna be just talking about some of the terrestrial weeds that we're dealing with. Tansy and poison hemlock. large Scotch broom areas. So I'm going to turn it over to Ben to kickstart it for us.
Cool. I'm gonna try to share my screen if that's cool. Never done it before. Oh, wow, look at all that. Where's what I want? Here we go. Share. Ooh. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So first let's tackle some poison hemlock. I know that I had a spot that Kylie came to help spray for me, and we're going to check it out really soon to see what's coming back, and then hit that again for sure. And you used imazapyr on that, I believe.
Yes, I did.
Awesome. Have you tried glyphosate on poison hemlock before?
Not personally.
Gotcha. I know Sound Native Plants, they'll use rodeo, and they'll also use imazapyr, and they'll do both of those at 2%. And we had good luck with that for sure. One thing I learned from Kylie, so after Kylie came and sprayed, I had found a little more poison hemlock next to the tribe's dump site. And so I just went with a shovel and some trash bags and some rubber gloves, and I went and pulled it. And it was pretty big. By pulling it, I got some of the leaves rubbed up against my neck. And when I got home, my dog like licked my neck a few times. And by that night, she was lethargic, and she was lethargic for about 3 days. I had to feed her and water her with a syringe. And by the 4th day, I took her to an emergency hospital. She was actually on the way to recovery by then. So I read about the poison for, dogs specifically from poison hemlock. And if they consume a little bit, that it could kill them within a few hours. Or if they did a little bit less than that, they say after 24 hours, they're so bad, you might have to put them down. Or if they ate even less than that, like what my dog did, then after a few days of lethargic, then they'll come back and be fine, just like my dog was. But so and then I told Kylie that story, and she mentioned to be really careful pulling it when it's hot out, because of the like that it kind of gases. Some of those fumes come out, and she mentioned a gentleman who got really sick off of that. And so just be really careful with that plant when removing it. Do it when it's cool out, not when it's really hot. And I don't even know if I'm going to dig them out anymore. I think I'm just going to focus on spraying them and letting them die back. But when you spray them, you got to get them when they're starting to grow, and get them before they go to seed, because that's not what we want to happen. They produce up to about 38,000 seeds each, and they are viable for up to 6 years. So I don't know if there's any huge spots that you kind of have your eye on, Kylie. And is that a noxious weed? Is that class 1, like it has to be eradicated in Grays Harbor?
It's not a class A, it's a class B. It's actually a class B select. So it is, selected for control. So landowners do need to control it. We do have some farms that I know are pretty infested, and I'll be working with them closely. I'll have the disposal program again this year. So a free disposal program for private landowners who might be pulling the poison hemlock or tansy to be able to come and dispose of it. Yeah, like you said, that information about handling it is just really imperative when talking to private landowners who might be taking care of it themselves. But they can bag it and bring it to me, and I'll throw it away for free.
Awesome. Right on. That's a good program. Does anybody want to chit chat any more about poison hemlock? Some of the things you're going through, or
Charles, I'm curious if you're working on any major populations of poison hemlock up near you. I'm starting to find it more and more around Grays Harbor, but I just want to hear how much of an issue is it over in Lewis County?
It seems to be a growing issue. We're seeing a lot more of it and the populations are expanding. I am not currently trying to take them on as a program, but we are trying to increase education and outreach around it and see what we can do to kind of stop that trend. Yeah.
Ooh-wee. Here's some of the poison hemlock that you got for us. Got some pictures of it. It's just everywhere. There's the old stocks and the new ones coming in underneath. Anyways, let me get back to our presentation. So right now, I'm getting ready to tackle some tansy ragwort. I've got a field that's 90 acres that's completely filled with it, and it has cows on there, and so it's constantly being disturbed, and it hasn't been taken care of yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do on a spot that's probably about a half a mile away from there. I've got just over 20 acres in a spot where there were cow and they're not there anymore. And I had Sound Native Plants spot treat at the end of October, about a 20-foot by 200-foot spot. I went and checked it out last Friday. They treated it with Garlon 3A, so triclopyr. And the difference between the rosettes that were sprayed and the ones that weren't was there was a slight difference. I noticed there was definitely a little bit of brown and slight curling around the edges of the leaf, even though there was a couple of new shoots coming out from the middle of the rosettes that were sprayed. But we'll see if there's any sort of if they're affected more as it comes to growing season. And if I feel good about the Garlon 3A being used and being effective, then pulling some teeth, I'm going to try to get a boom sprayer out on the 90 acres because spot spraying that, I just don't think that's a good idea. Cost effective, it would take too long. I just don't think that's a good way to go. Has anybody had done successful spraying with tansy ragwort and want to share what they've used?
I was talking to Kathy up in Clallam County, and she's been using Transline. Has anybody used Transline? That's her go-to for the tansy clopyralid.
Clopyralid, yes.
Yeah. But there is, when using it on the farms, you can't remove any vegetation or manure for at least 1 year off that farm. It's there's no grazing restrictions. But it goes right through the cattle, and so then it's in their manure, and so you can't take that manure or hay off that farm for at least a year. So it might be kind of complicated depending on what the use of the site is, but just that's what she said. That's her go-to is Transline. Mm-hmm.
I looked up some YouTube videos. I found a guy who did some actual test plots on his farm, and he used and after using those, looking at those test plots, he had good success with Milestone and Restore, which I believe both of them are the aminopyralid.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Dave mentioned the Milestone earlier.
Yeah, this is Nick Jarvis from the Forest Service. We treat tansy quite a bit. We use aminopyralid. We've also used Basin or triclopyr. It kind of depends on just kind of what we're treating that day and what makes sense as like a general herbicide we're using. Both are effective. Definitely with aminopyralid and clopyralid. Kind of the earlier you get to those plants, the better. Both those herbicides work better in the rosette stages, and we'll start to lose some efficacy in bolting stages. And with both of those herbicides, you do have the concern with grazing land and if that material will be used in the future, because they do. They both have pre-emergent effects and they have soil residual effects. Yeah, there can be some complications there, but both of them work really quite well. I am looking at the sheet here where you say 2% solution of aminopyrrolate, and I think that would be quite high. We go out at it's about 0.13%. I think label rates 7 ounces an acre. I think it's a slightly lower rate than that, but it's very effective.
Awesome. Can you say your rate again? Did you say 0.13%?
Yeah, we go out at it's a 0.13%. And I think, label max if you're, kind of doing a whole area is 7 ounces to an acre. So, it all depends on, what your application rates are as far as flow and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's a very, very powerful per, volume herbicide. A little bit goes a long way.
Right. So what did it say? 7 liters per acre? Isn't that what it says on the
7 ounces per acre if you're doing like kind of all of it. If you're doing, basically if you're doing spot spraying in there, I think you can go up to 14 ounces an acre as long as you're treating 50% of the area.
Okay.
But
Awesome.
but 14 ounces an acre is it's not a necessary rate for treating tansy.
Gotcha. My memory on the math part of that from the test, it's tough when doing spot spraying to take that 7 ounces an acre and turn that into a percentage. That's been an issue I've been having.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the math stuff that always gets fun. So
The aminopyrrolate though is or the milestone is significantly higher in cost, correct? So
it is.
It probably you need to be mindful of that if you're considering doing large acreages boom spraying.
Yeah, but it's a lot more per volume, but when you come out like a per acreage cost, it's fairly comparable.
Okay.
Just because it takes so little of the product to do the work.
Okay.
Okay, that's good to know.
No, that's really good to know. Thanks for that, Nick. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Awesome. So just a heads up on tansy itself, it is a biannual. We had a field where it had taken over about 70 acres or so on this field that did have cows on it, and it was being hayed. And I thought that was going to be one of the big things I was going to have to take on when I got here. This last growing season, there wasn't one tansy out in the field. It had all been left alone for 3 years by that time. And because it's a biannual and nothing disturbed the soil, all the tansy disappeared. It didn't come back after it went through its 2-year process. Now I'm sure that place is loaded with seed, but there's we don't have any plans on disturbing it except for doing some plantings in the future. So it really is a biannual. And if you have a spot where you can just leave it alone and let it run its course, I guess beside seed collection, if that's an issue. I think us being on the reservation and not having a county telling us we have to take care of it, that we've got kind of more issues than outside of this spot. So before I came across having to deal with like acres and acres of it at a time, I've always just dug it out in the summer before it goes to seed and bagged it and threw it away. That's kind of been my go-to. This last season, some of them that we didn't get to last minute, we just did a quick snip and cut all the seed heads off and throw those away just to bring down that seed spread. That's about what. Go ahead.
Oh, well, speaking of counties telling the tribe what they need to be doing, I do have an announcement to say that we are running a series of the tansy ragwort workshops. We got one this Friday at the Sharon Grange Hall, if you want to come, but it's going to be walking landowners through the process of developing an integrated vegetation management plan for these larger fields that are full of tansy ragwort, a lot of them off the Soft Bank Road or in that vicinity. And they'll be walking landowners through their tools and how to do it. But then we're also going to be talking to landowners about really coming down on the laws and the process, and we're going to start, hammering down on landowners who are unresponsive, and we'll be walking the landowners through the enforcement process to make sure that we get everybody on board. I have the county roadside sprayers really taking a high priority with it this year, as well as DOT. And so, we're just going to be laying that out. We have 4 workshops across the county: Sharon Grange Hall, Oakview Grange, Elks Lodge, in Hoquiam, and Causey. So I'll make sure that I send that flyer out if you'd like to attend one of those, just to hear about the laws and in our process of enforcement, and what we have to offer for tools for the landowners and trying to take care of it.
Awesome. I know that one of the best ways of getting folks on board is to show them it costs more to not take care of it than to take care of it. I know that's what's got some farmers I've chatted with on board.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So let's go to our other favorite. We got is a Scotch broom. And there was a little mini documentary that I watched. I'd recommend anybody who's interested. I'll tell you the punchline really fast, but it's called Broom Busters. They're a group up in Vancouver, BC, and their whole shtick is that they cut broom in bloom. That's it. They just cut it all as far down to the ground as they can get it, and that's it. And they have great success with it not coming back, so they don't have to pull the roots out, which that's the way I was taught to do it. We got those Scotch broom pullers, and one thing I really noticed was how much with these big Scotch broom, how much of the soil that we're disturbing just to allow these seeds to come back in and start growing again, especially at sites that we weren't mulching and planting right away. We were just taking care of the issue, and it seemed like now we're just creating more issues in the future. And then I was looking more into it, and there's folks who they cut as soon as it starts to be growing season, all the way to even after they seed, which isn't the best idea to let those seeds come into existence, but they're still having great success all the way through after the seed has showed up, cutting it as low as they can get. And they said sometimes they would have some small grow back from those plants, like a couple little twigs starting to come up for that first growing season, and then the following season most of those even died. And so my new go-to for taking care of Scotch broom here on the reservation is going to be just cutting it. And if it's a really big one, we're going to break out a little battery powered Sawzall to take it out. But that's my new go-to. I feel better about that than pulling it, which also can be a big wrestling match. And you don't go as fast pulling it. And I have sprayed it before when I was spraying other stuff with Sound Native plants. I think I was using at the moment a glyphosate and triclopyr mixture, and it totally died. But that's not the way that we're going to take care of Scotch broom here on the reservation. Now I know Kylie, I believe you've done the cut stump treatment, or is that Sound Native plants?
No, we do. The crews, Natalie and Kelsey and I, and working with the 10,000 Year Institute, we've been doing Scotch broom cut stump treatment all this winter out at the beaches, where we can't get a mower in, we can't. It's out at the beach, so foliar applications don't make sense. Pulling doesn't make sense. This is 200 acres, plus the soil disturbance, like you said, when you're pulling, just doesn't make sense. So we do cut stump treatment with loppers and saws. We even just got a brush cutter to make our work go a little bit faster. And we use 50% glyphosate. We're using Aquaneat, 50% in little squirt bottles, and treating the stumps as we go. And then we're out at the large acres that we have been working on out at off the South Bank Road at the pit was 15 solid acres. Luckily, I got the county to come in and bulldoze that and grade it so that we we'll be taking a spray truck through those acres every year. And we're usually doing triclopyr, and we'll do our cut stump around the perimeters. But I've been talking to Center for Natural Lands Management about the timing of our boom spraying with our truck in this prairie to promote the camas. So I was having a conversation or chatting with him earlier this week, and it sounds like we might be changing up our timing to be spraying the nude seedlings that are coming up in the prairie in August or September once the camas has to nest. And that will actually promote it. They're talking about doing some burning, but we probably won't be burning the prairie field there. But yeah, that's what I've heard. And so we'll probably adopt that that process this year about doing the spraying in the late summer and the fall to promote that camas.
Nice. So we did a prairie burn this last season. And I thought part of it was to help, burn some of the Scotch broom that was left. But the fire goes so fast and it's so low on those grasses that it didn't affect the Scotch broom much. So I'm wondering if for like a successful Scotch broom burn, if you have to have a certain amount of chunky grass or something to try to get a good flame. I'm not a fire expert, but that's just from what I saw. I've seen some spots on the side of the highway that had caught fire, and it looks like it, like the Scotch broom were toast. And then here comes the grow, so it was a real fire. I mean, it had like engulfed them. And then come the following season, I started to see little patches of green starting to poke out. And so I'm curious, this season, I'm going to watch and see if they were able to survive that initial grow back, kind of like when I was talking about lopping it low. And if it had a little grow back the first season, the following season, it would die. So just something I'm keeping my eye on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if there's any like collaborative or big Scotch broom clusters that we could take on as a team, or that are on your radar that we would need to talk about. I think everybody kind of has just their own Scotch broom that they're dealing with for the most part.
Yeah, and yeah, some of the cooperative weed management that I'm doing with the Scotch broom is out at the beach, working with state parks and working with the 10,000 Year Institute to control the Scotch broom out at the parks out there in the dune area, but nothing kind of on the East County side, unless you do off in our border area.
I know right-of-ways are usually a big issue with Scotch broom as well, just being a driver.
Yes.
Like right away.
So I'm poking and prodding the DOT and for more mowing. It seems like if I request a specific site that I want taken care of, they're pretty responsive. I got a large, it was like probably an acre cut and managed kitty corner from Keys Road near the Stats Up last year. And so if I put in a request for certain areas to be managed, yeah, they will do that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm getting more into the cut it to kill it mode. So we'll see what kind of success I have after this season coming into next year. I like the speed of it. We could either pilot and burn it or rent a chipper and chip it. So I mean, either way, it's a quick cleanup. I know when we were pulling it for sound native plants and then having to take it to the dump, oh my gosh, what a wrestling match on the constant with that stuff for sure.
Yeah, I'll be curious how that the cutting method works for you. I've done that in the past with marginal success.
Yeah.
I found definitely like with big, large established plants, it can work pretty well. Smaller plants are a little bit more challenging. Definitely whenever you can, like cut, get in below the soil and cut down there. I found that to be a lot more effective than, just kind of cutting at ground level. You really want to start getting kind of like into that actual root crown, not just the stem of the plant. So yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, right on, man. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to transfer to our Himalayan blackberry right now. I know that's a huge issue in the riparian area. It just is taking over and not giving a spot for shrubs and trees to grow up in, and it's also creating access for animals. They just can't get through it. It tastes delicious, that's for sure. So it's got one small benefit there. Normally there's a few ways to take care of it. When I was with Sound Native Plants, we'd come on and we'd brush cut it nice and low. Maybe even come in prior to brush cutting and spray it, and then brush cut it nice and low, and then mulch the crap out of it, and then plant it. And then we were doing spot spraying afterwards with any of the little shoots that were popping up, and that seemed like a really good method to go about. We used triclopyr at a 2% mixture, and that's our go-to, and it's worked really well. We just hit some blackberries around our barn here in the reservation with triclopyr, and we did it right towards the end of October, right at the brink of when you can't spray it anymore, and we had great success off of even hitting it that late. So the best times to start spraying are when it's just starting to come to fruit, like it's just starting to seed, all the way through until it's done with its fruit. As long as you still got enough green leaves on the plant, it'll uptake the triclopyr. I haven't done any of the cut stump with it, but the crew at Sound Native Plants this year has been doing a lot of the cut stump for blackberry over the winter. And there's a great way for them to be able to technically, kind of use pesticides without it having to be dry weather. And so they were just going through really quick, clipping the bottom and having someone remove it, and then painting on, I don't know what they were using, but their website, which is a great website to look up any tips and tricks for taking care of invasive species. But they were saying they were painting it with just a 1% to 2% triclopyr mixture on a foam brush. So that was their go-to. I'm not sure if they're still doing that or if anybody else is using a different percentage or a different product for Himalayan blackberry. But I recommend going to the Sound Native Plant website, and they have an information section where it tells you what they recommend doing for each invasive species and whether you're manually removing it or you're spraying it. But they're a good resource for sure. So one thing I've learned, they say if you're going to spray it after you weed whack it or mow it, to get a good result for it to get into the roots, to let it grow back for 6 months. I haven't tried that yet, but I definitely have that in my toolbox if I'm gonna cut it first and then spray later. Not just spray those brand new shoots that come up, but give it a chance to really get back before spraying it. Anybody have anything about Himalayan blackberry they'd like to chat about, or any questions?
I only kill it when it's in my way to get some knotweed.
It's not high priority for you yet.
It's just, yeah.
It's just there.
Yeah, we do, of course, but in the sites that we're working, but as for like going out and specifically working with it, it's just too, yeah.
I do have a question. This is Heimer. We have a planting project where we're planting shore pine down at Grayland. And one of the questions was, how can we control the blackberry and the Scotch broom that are coming up within the plantings? So once the plantings occur, is there a product you can spray over the top to control? Because for forestry, you can do that. And there are some products that you can spray over the top I just have never done it. So I was wondering, does anybody have any experience doing this?
Well, I know we were spot spraying the new growth blackberry around the plantings, but we weren't, you don't want to get that spray on your plantings. That's the only thing you have to be really careful about.
Right.
But spot spraying around the plants for blackberry, I've done that.
And that's kind of the fallback. We could spray between the rows with the appropriate product. But again, it says in the literature you can spray actually glyphosate over the top of some conifers before bud swell. And so, and that goes for some other products as well. Sulfur.
Interesting. Yeah.
Is another product, but it only works on seedlings. So again, you need to control the larger plants, and then you put it down as a residual, and you can spray over the top again when the plants are dormant.
Gotcha.
This
So
time, yeah.
you're talking about technically like spraying over top of all the plants, including the ones you planted and the weeds, with a product that's not going to hurt the plants you planted.
That's right. You use a boom again to be more efficient.
Right.
So yeah, I was just wondering if anybody's had any experience or anything with that. Going once, going twice. All right, just something to think about.
Right.
Okay. I'll let you know what I find out eventually.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's interesting. That sounds like why the farmers like glyphosate, because they can spray it right over top of their crops and it doesn't kill their crops, right? That's like the number one reason that stuff is still alive.
If I kill everything, I'll let y'all know too.
All right, we're gonna move on to reed canary grass. So man, I know I have a site that I'm always thinking about. It's Harris Creek kind of turns into a wetland over here in Oakville, right over the State Road Bridge. And so there's not an actual incised like spot for the creek. It's just, it kind of dissipates when it's at this spot. And that whole wetland where the creek dissipates is filled with reed canary grass. And it's up to me to decide how we're going to take care of it. So there's a few options, and I'll tell you the option that I'm thinking on going with. There's a really invasive option that will cost a lot of money, bringing in a big excavator and basically digging out 2 feet of all the rhizomes and roots of all of these reed canary grass, and then trying to reshape that valley. I don't know if we'd bring in rock or just reshape what's there, and then plant it really heavy with some willow stakes and some spirea, anything to just help take over and not let the reed canary come back. If we did that, I'd be spinning my wheels because we have issues with reed canary grass upstream that's outside of the reservation's boundary that I'd have to collaborate with folks to take care of that, because the seeds would just come right back in and take over. So that's not the route we're going to take. There's also the spray route, the pesticide route, which right now we're trying not to use glyphosate on the reservation. We're just not convinced yet that it's the right thing to do. So what we're thinking of doing is to do a really hard brush cut as low as we can get it, and come back in with some willow stakes about 3 to 4 feet apart, and then come back with another brush cut towards the end of that same season. And then that would just be what we'd have to do. We'd have to come back in the beginning of each growing season and brush cut, and then come back for a second or a third that season, depending on how crazy that reed canary is growing, and give those willow stakes a chance to start to shade out the reed canary grass. So there's a lot of research that's been done on best methods for reed canary grass, and that's the one that I'm holding on to because there's no pesticide involved, and it does take a lot of manual work with that brush cutting. But this year I'm going to have extra help. A little shout out to the Veteran Conservation Corps. I just found out that you can get a 6-month intern for $500, which is fantastic. And that's $500. So they, in turn, they get an $1,800 stipend. It's a government program, and they're looking for good folks to steward this program. And so they still want you to have a little like you pitched in. That's why the $500 is there. But it's like a paid for program, and it's going to make it affordable for me to have an extra hand to do a lot of this stuff. So just throwing that out there. If you guys have any questions, I'll put you in touch with Kim, who's running it. Great program, great deal, great for everybody. It's actually a healing program for veterans that's using working in nature to heal. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So there's other methods for reed canary when you're planting in it, like scalping the reed canary and then throwing down some cardboard and some mulch around each plant is a great way to hold that reed canary grass down and to give your plants a good chance of growing, being in reed canary grass. Some folks will spray around each of their plants instead of doing the mulching, because when it comes to labor and cost effectiveness, that's what works for them, and they're using glyphosate to do that. Oh, another guy had mentioned, he's like, hey, if for some reason you weren't able to brush cut or to spray around your plantings, you can get a 2x4 and you can, put a rope on each end and use it as like a step where you put it under your foot and you step over the reed canary and you fold it down. It's the same method folks use to make those fake like UFO circles in the fields. But he said it's just good enough to give your plants a chance to survive. Usually they're willow stakes, to survive through the winter if your reed canary grass got too tall, because it lays over in the winter, whether it's that it gets rainy or the wind or like it floods and it pushes it over. And if you didn't push it over yourself or brush cut it, it'll squash all your plants and they'll just disappear underneath the reed canary grass. So I thought that was a really good mechanical way of just doing like a last minute, let's try to protect our willow stake planting. So that's my take on reed canary grass. If you are going to spray it, glyphosate's the one to use, and we use rodeo when I was in Sound Native Plants, and use at 2% was what we were using. Anybody want to put their two cents in for reed canary grass? All right, our next one I wanted to chat about is Italian arum. I kind of got turned on to that this last season when it was reported to us that some kids on the reservation had gotten sick from eating it. And then so I went and found out a little more about it. Apparently it feels like needles when you eat it. It can really hurt your throat. It can make you sick. It can affect your skin too. So it's something you don't want to touch with your hands. I remember seeing its leaves before I knew what it was and thought it was really, really cool looking. I've got a couple pictures here of our infestation. This is what was brought to us by a resident. And my boss had handled it with his hands, didn't know how poisonous it was. And next thing you know, he's kind of got itchy, rashy hands. Let me show you, this is kind of what our infestation is looking like. Now this is right bordering the reservation. The road is technically Grays Harbor County, and the guy who lives up on this piece of property, we need someone else to go chat with him to get permission to spray all this stuff, or just spray what's on the right of way. And that's the thing too, is the spray, the pesticides that folks have, that we have available to spray Italian arum, apparently it just kills the top, and it doesn't kill the rhizomes and the roots underneath. Now they've got what do they have, like bulbs, I believe, and like little berries, they call them. So they put out a lot underneath, and it's hard to dig it all out. and it's hard to spray it to kill it from the top. So this is a really difficult one to take care of. Even gardeners have trouble getting it out of their own garden beds manually. It just keeps coming back, but it's on my radar. I don't want any more kids getting sick from this stuff on our reservation. So found out about it, and now we got to destroy it somehow.
Yeah, and I'll definitely be working with you. It's on my mind too. This spring, I gotta look at the timing of that. And I think it is pretty early for the timing of the spraying of it. And working with that landowner, it's definitely on my mind. And so here in the next couple weeks, let's make a plan for it, and I'll try to get that landowner on board.
All right. Yeah. Looking into what to use, imazapyr and glyphosate have both been used. We just don't have the results yet of anybody really being able to get the whole plant killed all the way, even under the ground. So that'll be a constant battle. I'll be cheering for results, positive results. And I know we've got Canadian thistle. Now, what class is that for Grays Harbor?
C.
It's a C?
Widespread. Yeah, it's not designated.
Okay. Is that something that you're going after at all right now, or is that low on your priority list?
I work with, that's kind of more in my, I don't have any projects that are Canada thistle focused. There is some biocontrol releases in some areas, and for the Canada thistle, but that's mostly I've been working with Canada thistle when it comes to just working directly with the farmers and doing like pasture renovation and stuff like that.
Right on. I know, so we use the Transline. It's the clopyralid. When it was with sound native plants, we had good success with that. We use 0.5% mixture, and best time to spray it is September to October to get a nice kill underground, because that's when you can really, that's when it's uptaking the pesticide to its roots. So you can spray it March to May all the way to June, and you can get some above ground killing, or maybe a little more holding it back. But if you wait till September to October, that's when you're going to get the best results using Transline. And
that's good to know. I need something else to offer this one farmer that's been fighting it, and he's been fighting it for years. And he keeps asking me what a different product to be using is. So I'll offer that one.
Yeah, and the right time too, because
yeah, aminopyrrolate also works quite well. But both aminopyrrolate and clopyrrolate are pretty similar.
Right on.
Yeah, so both of them will work for Canada thistle.
Cool. Good to know.
And then we're about out of time. Let me just throw something out there real quick. For laurel and holly and the invasive hawthorn, Garland 3A works great as a cut stump treatment. There's these cool spring-loaded poles that have these bullets in them, and the bullets, I believe, have the triclopyr, like a strong mixture of triclopyr. And for big hollies or big hawthorns or even big laurel, you get that big stem, and you cram it down about 4 inches off the ground onto the stalk, and you insert them every 2 inches. And so when you press that up against it, it shoots that little bullet, not with gunpowder, but with the spring, and the front of the bullet literally just sticks into that plant and slowly releases the Garland 3A, and it works. And it's a great way to take out big hawthorns, hollies, or laurels. But so that's it. That was our wonderful day of pesticides and invasive species destruction. I'm going to unshare. I think that's about it. Boom. Yeah, Kylie, have you seen those big poles before?
Easy. All right, easy injects.
Yeah.
I think I have some. I have not busted them out and used them yet, but I have some.
I really wanted them to be like, with a little bit. It's not like that though.
I don't think so. I haven't used them yet, but I do have. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for making this happen, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Ben, for that. I actually got lots of good little tidbits there to be working on. And it sounds like, I'll be working with you on a few different projects here. Yeah, coming down the pipe. But yeah, thank you all for joining the meeting today and offering your input on this. And there's obviously going to be little side conversations and projects moving forward. We'll get connected with the people that are involved. And then I still do want to put on another bigger cooperative weed management area meeting that will have, a lot bigger group that are not necessarily tied to specific projects, but everybody would be invited, and potentially doing some more herbicide training and having some credits available. I'm a little behind on that organization, but I still do plan on having that sometime this spring. So just stay tuned, keep an eye out for emails from me, and then I'll follow up with some meeting notes. And yeah. So
Awesome.
I
Thanks,
got-
Kylie.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any last thoughts before we hop off?
I'm good. Thanks for putting
Okay.
it together. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Have a great day.
Yeah, you guys too.